Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Capital H podcast, coming to you live from Unleash America. I'm here with Paul Rubenstein, the Chief Customer Officer of Visier. Paul, thank you so much for coming to join Capital H. We're thrilled to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Paul, we were just talking. There's a lot of energy at Unleash. There's a lot of thoughts and ideas just swirling around, and sometimes it's like so much excitement and energy, which I think is going to make for a great conversation here. But so, Paul, let's just start with maybe explain to folks first a little bit about your role as the Chief Customer Officer at Visier, and then let's just straight into some of the ideas that we're seeing and hearing in the market and here at Unleash.
It's a cool job. I mean, I don't know what else to say. So I grew up in consulting. Well, that's where I did my real growing up.
Yep.
And, it's just like many of your team, they help make a better HR function.
Yep.
And for me, I was always frustrated on those HR transformation projects because just because you create the capacity to have more business impact doesn't necessarily mean you'd create the capability.
Yep.
And, I look back at that work and I used to get frustrated at talent strategy. I was like, because, you think about it, you're building something that's fit for mission.
Sure.
But you're held accountable for it. But you're also not, you don't make it easy for people to see the information about how their individual decision is impacting a collective outcome. Anyway, I worked in consulting for a long time, and I turned my lens on that problem and working on complicated strategy, trying to create a taxonomy for human capital strategy. It's not like the CFO is great. He's got FASB, he's got GAAP, you can, and they have this amazing rhythm of the P&L. 12 times a year. Right. You stare at it, you look at it, and you say, are these good decisions or bad?
Right.
Do they align to the collective outcome or not? And you can only go so many months without course correcting or you're out of a job.
Yep.
Well, with human capital, it's a little bit different, right? Yep. The collective turnover rate, that's not my problem. That's somebody else's problem to bend that curve. And it was like, well, if we were starting to write good human capital strategies, hey, your spans and layers need to be here by a certain date, right? Okay. Or you need to hire more in this region or that, or at this cost level or not that one, et cetera. Again, big outcome, lots of small decisions, but the visibility of your single moment into that was missing.
Yep.
Started writing from to statements.
Sure.
You start to get into the HR data.
Sure.
The HR data, it's disconnected. It's all over the place. It was hard to bring it all together.
Yep.
The HR people sort of were still resistant to data. And I had worked on these projects. And if you ever worked on an old HR transformation project, what came last in your systems roadmap? Reporting and analytics, if you ever got to it, right? When we all know that's what you should start with.
Yep.
Anyway, I went on this, mission of, trying to solve that problem, and I met a company, and they had a completely different approach to analytics that was start with the questions, because people don't know what questions to ask. And I looked at this technology and I said, this was the first time I saw tech that wasn't about how you made HR more efficient.
Sure.
It was about the pattern recognition across all the different systems of HR.
Yeah.
And how you made it easy for people to understand without being experts or constantly going back to the analyst or make you another version in the version you wanted, right?
Yep.
And I looked at it and I was like, whoa, this doesn't even belong in HR. This belongs outside of HR. And I said, this is the way that the CHRO can finally be like the CFO and start to write talent strategies with measurements and intervene before the end of the year, before the outcome and before the curve can no longer be bent.
Yeah.
And I was in love and I quit my job and I joined them, right? At one point I was trying to should we invest in this? And I was told, oh, you're an idiot. Anybody could build this with a data warehouse. Well, they're wrong.
Yeah.
And so here we are, I've been there now. I experimented with them 10 years ago. I joined after that, been there 8 years. First as the head of value engineering. I didn't even know that was a job because I didn't grow up in tech. And I became obsessed at Visier with the moment you saw new information, did you make a better decision?
Sure.
Right? Led me down to the work of Daniel Kahneman, fast brain, slow brain, how you think about that. But think about it, right? And I began to understand analytics more as a management motion than a technology. And I wish everybody saw it like that. I wish the head of HR saw it like that instead of delegating it to, some technologist or some people analytics scientist, right?
Yep.
It is a management motion. And I started working with Visier on that problem and how do we evangelize around that? And then, we were growing as a company, and they were like, hey, can you also be head of HR? And I did that. I was going to do that for a little while. COVID happened. And then a couple of years ago, I went back into the business to become chief customer officer, which is everything from professional services, customer care, but mostly how do we make sure that people don't see this as just a technology, but actually extract value from it and impact business outcomes. And so that's sort of my whole mission. That was long. Sorry.
But I think, Paul, I think that's helpful for people to understand, because actually there's things that came out in your introduction in terms of how you think about the function, the importance of analytics, what Visier is trying to do for your customers, right? Driving business outcomes for your customers that are therefore driving workforce outcomes for the people within those businesses, that therefore are just doing better things for the world and society at large, right? And I think even the way in which you all have launched some products like the persona-based dashboards for CFOs to help them make better, faster decisions in some of those domains, but also understanding you need internal and external data to come across.
What you're really doing there is, what that's centered around, better decisions. What does the world need? The world needs better decisions. The world needs decisions that are aligned. Right? That's the hardest thing, right? Strategy gets killed on alignment, right? The world needs fairer decisions. The world needs fact-based decisions. If there were more, I don't want to talk about government, but but we need fact-based, data-based decisions, right? And that gives me comfort as a human.
And so, Paul, let's jump into a few of the ideas that were right before we started, here's things that we're thinking about as you're feeling the energy here at Unleash. And one of those was, to your point earlier, around managers are the ones who are making decisions every single day with their team. Where do I focus my team? How do I engage with this customer? How do I close this sale? And you were, talking about using the chef analogy, right?
Well, actually, you actually channeled, before we go there, you channeled something. There's even the way you said it. It's really hard to be a frontline manager. How do you figure out what is the signal in all the noise that is being sent at you, right? And I think that's to me, that's one of the biggest promises I see of AI. And as people start to understand AI as a way of changing their system of management, not as a set of features or tools, whatever, that's what I'm most excited about. Because if I can turn around and and say to you, hey, by the way, Barbara over there, she's an introvert. She's never going to make a big fuss. But she's sowing the signals that you can't see with the naked eye that she's going to leave. I'm going to send you a blip. I'm going to send that little shock to your watch, right? So you pay attention to Barbara, because you might not otherwise do that because you're so busy and you don't have a 15-minute slot on your Zoom or whatever it might be. So now imagine that comes to you. Let's work backwards from the manager. Now you want to do something about it. I've alerted you that Barb is there. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to call an HR business partner. Okay, well, first of all, fallacy number one, most people, we build HR service delivery models informed by the people who consume HR. We need to build them informed by the people who never want to call HR. And that's still a huge amount of people.
Right.
You don't want to call the bank. You don't want to call, you don't want to call anybody, right? You want to text them or whatever. So working backwards from that, you have to consider that in the world of AI, what is the business partner role? Do we need it? Or do we need that business partner who is just a broker, an orchestrator? No. Each part of HR, you hear them talk about expressed as agents or data availability or whatever it might be. It's like, instead of the business partner being the chef, the hiring manager is the chef. But they don't have to be an expert in the mise en place, right? Mise en place, the term for making sure that every single item that's could go into all the dishes on the menu is properly prepared, et cetera. That's what HR has to be good at and make it easy and accessible for somebody to come in. A buffet might be a better example. One day I need shrimp. The next day I need, nobody wants lobster off a buffet. But you assemble it yourself. And HR has to make it easy to do that and stop trying to control the intervention, but enable the intervention so that the person becomes good at it over a long time. And those buffet elements need to be simple enough, and it can move on to the next thing. Now, what does that mean? That means the things that are uniquely human, the things that are uniquely him, right? changes the way you hire, right? You need to have people who can assemble it all together, the people who have high context, the people who can be convincing about changing the problem, you know? So I think we open up a whole set of new possibilities around the service delivery model of HR, if I'm going to be specific, but also around a management system. Because now if you think about the moment at which I ask for guidance, I can now tune that guidance, not through an apprenticeship of a head of HR to a senior VP business partner to a VP business partner to a director to right down the chain, which has distortion naturally and biases and all those other things. But now if I'm the head of HR, like how often do you, as the head of HR, get something escalated to you, or as the CEO escalated to you? Like if I had been in the room, I would have made a better decision. Well, now, right, think about what we're doing with AI, right? About capturing someone's style, tone, decision-making algorithm, et cetera, and pushing it out to other people. Now I can guide as the CEO.
Make better decisions farther from the center,
and I can collapse the distance to impact for the C-suite on lots of things in new ways. That is not enabled by the traditional HR model or the career path of apprenticeship. Thank you. So I get very excited about that. And the world needs that right now. Sorry, that was a lot.
No. Some and some of what you said, like, you know, I don't know, 45 days ago now, Deloitte released our 2025 Global Human Capital Trends Report. One of the trends was about reimagining the role of the manager. Because out of our 10,000 plus respondents, manager time, 40% of their time is spent on what was deemed non-value add, right? It is problem solving, firefighting, issue resolution, administrative. I got to process someone's time and expenses. And over the years, to your point about like features don't solve, how much has been the gist of an HR transformation has included, let's give manager or self-service to do more, right? But a lot of that more is, hey, we can help you approve faster an employee transfer or a promotion or this or that or, you know, et cetera. At its core, though, that's not necessarily better decision-making tied to a business outcome, right? That is a thing to do that the system might now be enabling you to do faster, but it's not, hey, a manager, now we've equipped you with better internal and external talent market data tied to what is the business strategy, and now you know these things, right?
You've gone to a dark place, right? I'll tell you why, right? Because this requires HR to rethink the way they talk about the economics of HR, right? So sins of the past. You know, I teach everybody who comes into Visier to like talk to people who aren't from this space. That's because the line has never been drawn from business impact and better decisions back to HR's
Here's the investment we made.
Now, granted, right? Paying for something in one P&L and another one benefiting from it is like a high wire act in any corporation, right? That's really tricky stuff. But if you're able to explain to people, we had a high risk person, high value. First of all, get rid of the subjectivity of that. Being able to cross the boundaries of HR data and work data, right? What is truly people data, right? You know, and be able to say, okay, you know, this person was objectively productive, had this impact on NPS, had this impact, you know, this closed this many tickets in Jira, and we invested this much learning in this one versus that one, and bring all that information together. Okay, now we can turn around and say who was really valuable. Which managers ignored them or kept them? Which managers allocated pay to the investments that paid off, right? If we're able to deliver HR systems and experiences, right, an HR delivery model that changes the business outcome through those better decisions, that's a different business equation than total cost of ownership. That's total business impact. And that's the math that HR hasn't been good at yet. In their defense, the way we've architected everything together, it hasn't been easy to follow that trace, you know, to trace back from A/B testing manager decisions on individual things, but we can do that now. It's there.
And Paul, this may be, I will freely admit, a personality style. I am significantly on the end of the optimism spectrum. I feel like a number of chief people officers, CHROs that I've been talking with recently will say, I am a business leader first and HR leader second.
Yes.
Which fills me with hope that there is the shift happening to acknowledging we need to think more about total business impact, which I love as a term, not total cost of ownership. And are the things that we're investing in, we're not doing this for the sake of the function. We're doing this for the sake of the business, for the sake of the workforce, right? And we even had some other research recently about, some data on the role of the CHRO that would say data analysis and data acumen is becoming one of the top skills required to be a CHRO, right? Because you need to understand the data, what to do with it, how to make decisions, how to help others make decisions. And so maybe optimistically, as we think of the future of the function in the next 5 years, and to your point, like what are the human things that the function should be doing? Maybe there's a redesign of like, let's create the mise en place or the buffet that empowers the managers, many of whom, to your point, maybe never wanted to engage with HR first. And so they're trying to like do it on their own, but they're not necessarily equipped with what are the right best solutions for how I engage to like solve for a talent problem. But now HR can help the managers do those human things to solve for keeping my highest at risk performer, if I should be keeping that person, or where do I do all that stuff? So maybe optimistically, I'm like, we have a good future ahead.
I'm with you, right? But what does that require to get to that optimistic future we so desire?
Oh,
right?
A lot.
I think we fundamentally have to recognize that, the composition and makeup of the heads of HR is changing. It's not changing fast enough. It's not changing fast enough. And by the way, for any CEOs out there listening, expect more. Right? I think there's a learned helplessness that a lot of the functions have about what to expect from HR. And that's why they don't, hold it to a bar high enough. Don't worry. HR people will rise to the level of amazingness that you want, right? But also the flip side, you will never be a better head of HR than your CEO is. So, those two go, that's why that partnership is so important. I digress. But go back to the majority of the composition of HR, because of that apprentices model, is still lives in the culture of risk. Risk prevention, we have to prevent it, et cetera. That is still tremendously pervasive, okay? It started to shift, right? I think during the pandemic, we spent a lot of time talking about what I'll call the peak of how business impacts people, burnout, engagement, et cetera. Well, where that arc is fading fast for some good and bad reasons, right? Because it was never balanced by how people impact business. Understanding really who made the most difference in the outcomes of business, right? HR's economics were all about sameness, as many programs, right? But we live in a hyper-personalized world. And the reality that, we don't invest in all of our stocks the same way. Some will have bigger outcomes. Sameness does not yield greatness when it comes to people strategy, right? You have to meet different portfolios where they are, different people where they are, different levels where they are, right? And so what becomes that anchor as we balance how business impacted people with how people impact business? I will tell the anchor for the future that HR should focus on is productivity and work backwards from that. If you go all the way back before the years of risk to when it was a human engineering department, right? Where they would do time and motion studies to understand how to best assemble an assembly line around people, right? And how to engineer jobs. Let's go back to that. Every head of HR should be sitting there saying, how am I going to deliver total business impact? Because I am going to give them the other part of the productivity equation, which the business can't see today. And that's going to be people insights. By the way, that's not an attendance report. That's not a report. It's not a birthday report. It's not any of those things. Here's the irony. To be successful at delivering productivity insights to the business, you have to really get past some of the deeply rooted risk beliefs and behaviors we see in HR, like guarding the data. I will tell you, I'm always shocked when there are Visier customers who don't push the data outside of HR, because that's where the data makes the impact, right? Or the people who don't want to share the data, or it's the data in combination. Patterns don't happen in a silo. Patterns happen across the silos. And so, I think these things are on a collision course, and I'm hoping that the best CHROs, and more importantly, the CEOs will demand better HR and demand HR to show up and give every business the insights to engineer more productivity. And by the way, employees want that too. Employees want to work on the things that are truly human, right?
Yeah.
And AI, people want their AI investment to pay off. And that's the intersection with productivity. So there's never been a more golden moment for HR to have an impetus to change, right, than now. And this transformation, again, isn't about transforming the HR function to be efficient with the capacity to impact business outcomes. Now it's rethinking the capabilities required of the HR function to impact productivity. And by the way, AI is the gasoline on that fire.
Yeah. Gosh, well, Paul, one of the things that you said in there that I want to double down for folks is like the sameness does not equal greatness. And I was speaking with a chief people officer the other day who said the most important thing she tries to focus on and have her team focus on is, can we answer the question of, are our best people in the company working on our biggest enterprise priorities, right? And there's no sameness approach to that because not every person's the same. So how do you then think about like the data, the insights, understanding with the managers who are our best people truly, and do we have them tag to our biggest enterprise priorities so that we can work fast, make decisions faster, and AI can be a tremendous help to that, to your point. Paul, this is one of those, like, we could probably have this conversation for hours, but in the spirit of like a 25-ish minute, 30-minute digestible insights for Unleash, there's so much that I feel like we've given people to noodle on, to think about. And I want to make, the opportunity, like a couple things for you to say, like, for folks who are grappling with this now and thinking about like what's ahead, what's a thing that they should think about that's coming? And then even like where do you get started today? Like a simple step to start taking to go drive better total business impact, for organizations and thus the workers within the organization.
I think you have to start, and I know this is going to sound really trite, right? But you got to start with leadership philosophy and culture. I did a roundtable yesterday, and there was this magical moment where these leaders were talking about caution, caution, caution. We have to be cautious, and our people are being very cautious with AI. And the attorneys are worried about this and that, and what if we get it wrong? And I try not to be emotional in those situations, but I couldn't help it. But I'm like, guys, speed. Speed. Slowness kills, time kills all deals is what they say, right? In any transaction, right? Well, lack of speed will kill a business. Just always know somebody is going to take the gloves off and move faster.
Only the paranoid survive.
Exactly. And, we, for some reason, we put more energy into coming up with scenarios, edge cases, and obscure moments that will cause problems with AI. No, man, let it free, invent, right? Like now is the time. If you worry about consequence to the point at which you become competitively disadvantaged, you're going to pay a huge price. Which side of history do you want to be on, right? Because you know where it's going. People are innovating now. I think the second thing is stop thinking about that. I'm listening at this conference today. Stop thinking about AI as a feature functionality. Stop thinking about, oh, AI, I have this capabilities. Which jobs can I go attack? Stop right there and work backwards. Look at your labor force and say, which are the things that are uniquely human? Which are those things that are truly valuable, right? Wall those off and then find solutions in AI for everything else and prioritize them that way. It's ironic because what you're really doing is there's this wave coming of job decomposition, right? Everyone's in some form of it. And you actually need a well-decorated, well-understood, well-rounded employee record to really understand with greater visibility, a 360 view of that employee. So now people analytics, right? And what everyone's been trying to do there, right, is more important because you need to have a holistic view without the boundaries of the systems or even beyond HR's boundaries. And that's where, the biggest thing in Visier is people who are bringing in Jira and Salesforce and ServiceNow data to understand truly what is this person's impact on business. Then, right? And so what's interesting is this great job decomposition and this great workforce realignment that's happening. It needs people analytics more than ever before so that we can make good decisions about AI in the workforce. At the same time, AI is changing people analytics, right? And AI
people analytics and workforce planning.
And workforce planning, you just hit it. And what everyone is realizing in workforce planning, and that's the next big revolution that we're seeing right now, workforce planning is no longer a sleepy back office function. it is there just has to be zero distance between planning and analytics nowadays. And this is, if we go all the way back to the beginning, this is HR's version of budget to actuals, being able to say each month, this was the plan, where are we? And by the way, who owns this? Because workforce planning, now that you're looking at the holistic view, needs inputs. And it needs fast multiple scenario planning, which is AI's better at than humans, right? So now, okay, so we said we're decomposing work and recomposing, what gets done by AI now, later, what is truly human. We need good analytics on this and good planning, and we need to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. And that brings us all the way back to the management motion we talked about. Because when you can, help really guide everyone recomposing jobs and work, right, with a good philosophy, right, and good information, when you can quickly measure it with great speed daily, how did this next hire get us closer to or away from the plan, or what inputs, what production orders or et cetera need us to adjust that plan, right, in real time, and then get managers to use that data rather than instinct and inertia, and make it easy for them to see. They don't have to go to the analyst to get another cut of the data or wait a week or whatever, and it's all there, right? It's all there. You now have a hyper-speed workforce planning. You have transformation that is informed not just by how people impact business, but by how business impacts people. And you created this through line around productivity of the manager, who is good at he is productive at managing productivity. Right? That gets you all kinds of meta, but I think there's a future there. And I think competitive advantage through workforce insights, that's what it's going to come down to. If you look back at history, like, we've conquered finance. Finance is a mature function. You can rent it. Supply chain, you can rent it. You can go out and rent IT. The last great differentiator is understanding your workforce and being able to supercharge them. And that's who the winners are going to be.
Gosh, I feel like mic drop moment there. And if I just kind of summarize 2 or 3 things for folks from that. Speed. It's like speed is the value right now. You need to be experimenting and learning, co-creating with your managers, right? Making sure it's tied to business outcome, workforce outcome, right? You can't be cautious in this moment. Second, you need to understand what your humans will be doing going forward. And your humans will be making decisions.
Absolutely.
Right? And thus, what types of decisions? Therefore, what data and things you need to provide them to make those decisions, cutting out the layers of things that it takes to make decisions. Weeks for a report. Hey, the report has data, but we have no insights around the data, right? And we actually are not even telling you what to do with it, right?
Can I give you an analogy around that?
Yeah.
You hear about all these incredibly successful investors, right? Then you're like, you idolize them. And then what you don't see, you see the tip of the iceberg. Underneath the water are teams and teams of people, right? And tons and tons of money spent on computing, et cetera. So these people have access to the most up-to-date, hyper-personalized, hyper-situationalized, hyper-contextualized information upon which to make a decision. What we're talking about is making that available to every manager, right? And that's competitive advantage.
And Paul, what I love about that is a chief people officer who made a comment around, like, if you believe AI is about the pie does not grow and it's a zero-sum game, you will just try to find efficiencies. If you believe AI and automation is about empowering people to do new things and innovate and the pie will grow, you will operate in a different way. And this is maybe both of us optimistic with our rose-colored lenses on, but that future is so exciting. Like, think about the ability of humanity to experiment and do new things, but do it because they have data. Do it because they have insights. Do it because they can make a decision that much faster. What is that going to lead into? Productivity within the business, new ideas that get to market faster, new roles, new business models, like
the way new management models, right? You think about how the internet changed the way we managed, right? And you're able to have connected corporations, and you didn't have to have distributed multinationals. You could have true integrated global corporations. What is AI going to do to that? That's what we need to look at.
I love it. Paul, I feel like, again, we could go forever. Also, in the respect and spirit of your time here at Unleash, any final thought that you'd like to leave folks?
No, it's been a delight to be on Kyle's Optimistic Growth Mindset podcast. So I'll come back anytime.
Awesome. Well, Paul, thank you. It's truly been a privilege to sit down with you. I'm sure a week from now, we could even revisit this, and there's like the ideas have continued to coalesce beyond just like what's in the mind of the moment. But Capital H listeners, so much energy here. Paul Rubenstein, Chief Customer Officer at Visier.
Hey, big shout out to the Deloitte team who's doing amazing work with Visier, helping change. They are literally changing and supercharging HR functions. Your team has done amazing work to create truly data-driven organizations. It's been phenomenal.
It's been a true collaboration. But folks, stay tuned for more insights coming from Unleash, and definitely check out Paul. He's a phenomenal storyteller. And folks, have a great rest of your day.
This podcast is produced by Deloitte. The views and opinions expressed by podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Deloitte. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice or services of any kind. For additional information about Deloitte, please go to deloitte.com/abound.